All right, good morning, everyone. The November 3rd Executive Committee meeting is now called to order. First, I would like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Buenos días a todos y bienvenidos a la reunión. Les pedimos de favor que después de que yo haya dado las instrucciones, en la parte inferior de su pantalla va a aparecer el globo que dice Interpretation. Favor de seleccionarlo y posteriormente selecciona como idioma de preferencia Spanish, es decir, español. Si está llamando por teléfono o si está usando una tableta, en lugar de ver el botón de Interpretation, va a aparecer 3 puntos en la parte de abajo de su pantalla que dicen More. Seleccionan esa opción, posteriormente Interpretation Settings, que son la configuración de la interpretación, y seleccionan Spanish como su idioma de preferencia. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
All right, as you can see, Chairwoman Vargas is not able to join us today as a result of a long-standing travel responsibility that she had. So I will be presiding over today's meeting. So apologies, mostly to you, John, for that. We will go ahead and get started with tribal acknowledgement, and I will take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups: the Kumeyaay, the Diegüeño, the Luiseño, the Copeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy, and we aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, if you will please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag and begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tessa, will you please call the roll?
City of San Diego, Vice Chair Ayuda Rivera.
Present.
County of San Diego is absent. East County, Councilmember Shu.
Present.
North County Coastal, Vice Chair Hebner.
Present.
Councilmember Burkholder. North County Inland, Mayor Voss. South County, Councilmember Duncan.
Present.
And that concludes the roll call and confirms a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. We've got quorum, so we will move to item 1, which is public comments and member comments. Before we proceed to non-agenda comments, I will remind everyone in the room today that this meeting will be conducted in an orderly manner to ensure that the public has an opportunity to be heard and that the members' discussions and deliberations are not disrupted. We want to hear from every person who has comments on the subject of today's meeting, on the subjects of today's meeting. But I will insist that comments remain on topic, and no comment shall use loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language that disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Such behavior would not be tolerated, and any such language or any other disorderly conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the committee meeting is prohibited. And based on today's agenda, we will provide each member of the public 1 minute for their non-agenda comments. Tessa?
Thank you. I have 2 in-person public speakers. Truth, please come to the podium. And then I also have currently 3 virtual speakers. We take 5 speakers at the beginning of the meeting. All other hands raised other than Paul the Bold, phone number 813, and Catherine Road will be taken at the end of the meeting.
All right, this is truth out of the mold I broke out of to be here. Sean, those rules aren't official yet. You know, I got to be a man, a few words, Bob. Can't slow his roll, Stewart, and one-woman army Mary's last meeting. And hopefully they all celebrate with some of that free cake that was left because there were no boxes for me to take it all home. Tony and Jack have both called the gas tax a road user charge, and I agree. And that's why I'm also against a gas tax. None of these taxes have fixed the roads. They seem to only be buckets of money for government fraud.
No conspiracy here. There's no conspiracy here. There's no conspiracy here. I just wanted to put that out there that I'm not a conspiracy person.
Because that would remove a lot of conspiracy thoughts.
And your guys' non-conspiracy stretches into the next county meeting, where the SANDAG 60 seconds will be implemented by Nora as a tool of censorship for non-agenda, with no clapping anywhere, except for proclamations and awards there, and for Mary leaving and singing for Nora's birthday here. The people are not going to tolerate Nora's nonsense. And then, of course, now she's in South Korea building a mega region we did not
Your
consent
time
to.
has expired. Our next public commenter, Dr. Bilaashka, will be followed by the first virtual commenter, Paul the Bold. Dr. Bilaashka.
Good morning, Exec Committee. Thank you for taking my comments. My name is Timothy Bilaashka. I'm up in the Del Mar area. I will not apologize for being a science nerd today. I will not apologize for being a male obstetrician physician. I'd like to speak today about toxic tire wear. I attended a week-long conference last week at the Laboratory for Fluorescence Dynamics, which my research advisor in grad school formed at the University of Irvine campus. I happened to chance upon a bunch of engineers that are studying brake wear up there. In fact, some new studies that they reported on this week, and I'd like to advise the exec committee about this important problem. Just want to make sure I have 11 seconds. So they're finding that ceramic and metallic infused brakes are having toxic compounds, carbon compounds in the air, and they're just starting
Your time
tire wear and
expired.
road wear. Thank you.
Our next public commenter, Paul the Bold, please go ahead. You are self-muted. Thank you.
Hi, Paul Bold. Last meeting of the Board of Directors, we were treated to the spectacle of the Board of Directors having to listen to a diatribe about how her staff are apparently putting pressure on the Board of Directors. Of course, then she responded with the infamous quote about how corruption is illegal. Corruption is not illegal, but putting pressure on the board members is very unethical, and really that's what we're for, put pressure on them. Staff should not be putting pressure on them. That is highly unethical, and there should be a policy against it. Please institute one. Thanks.
Our next public commenter, phone number 813, please go ahead. You are self-muted.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, yep, I just wanted to follow up with Paul the Bold's statement regarding corruption and illegal. Did Nora have to go to North Korea to find that out? I think it applies in Tijuana. Corruption is not illegal. You all are in some form corrupt. And Cardenas and all these people who get exposed for their illegal and corrupt behavior is, it's happening. So don't even try to, come on, the people who are there, stand by your words, don't backpedal, stand by your words, be there for the people that you represent, okay?
Thank you. Our next and final commenter at this time, Catherine Rhodes. The other two, the original draw and Blair Beekman, will be taken at the end of the meeting. Catherine, please go ahead.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and today I wanted to talk about my La Playa plan for full tidelands reclamation again. And basically what it is where you, on our tidelands, where you take out all the junky liquefiable soil so you have a good solid foundation and you build up from that. And the thing is that it needs, of course, it has a lot of proof of concepts, like the Navy Broadway complex building that's being built, the County Administration Center, Port Headquarters. But as a corridor, it needs a proof of concept project. And I very much hope that as part of your airport connectivity, that you actually build everything underground, not have more transportation at road level, and actually build this underground where you could actually create space. And it won't, and what you do is you would build kind of like a bulkhead, just like in a ship, would have one bulkhead and a series of bulkheads attached. And that would actually be the corridor. And with that, we could solve so many problems in San Diego. We could solve sea level rise, of course, which is a big one.
Your time expired. That concludes the public comments at this time.
All right, thank you so much. We will now go to non-agenda member comments if there are any. Before we do that, I did want to briefly mention that I had a chance to connect with the chair about this. We acknowledge that one of the members of the executive committee and our full board is facing serious charges right now. There is an appropriate venue to discuss that as a board, and it is at a properly noticed meeting. The plan is to do that. So want to make sure that we acknowledge that elephant in the room and let you all know that there is a plan for us to have a conversation as a board about that in the future, in a manner that is in accordance with our board policies. With that, I will now see if there are any additional member comments. All right. Simple enough. Shocked. Okay. We will now go to our consent agenda. We've got items 2 and 3. The approval of meeting minutes and the review of draft board agendas. Colleen, do you have any updates on the draft agenda this week?
Chair, yes, I do. So regarding the December 8th, 2023 agenda, we have 3 proposed and potential additions. The first is a resolution to support the 2024 World Design Capital, which is the San Diego Tijuana being designated as a design capital and a number of events around that. So adding an item to the December 8th agenda to recognize that through a resolution. Additionally, we want to follow up with the board on security measures. So that was something we discussed at your last board meeting. We have some follow-up there. And we may also have some additional information regarding the toll operations. And that might be an item then we would also add for December 8th. Other than that, no other changes, Chair.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that, Colleen. Do we have any additional comments or questions related to the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve? We've got a motion from Mayor Voss.
We could please take public comments first, Vice Chair.
Yes, we can definitely do that. Apologies. Let's go to public comment on the consent agenda.
Thank you. I have one in-person public commenter. Truth, please come to the podium.
Item 2, the minute saying Truth commented regarding all consent agenda items or commented regarding various agency issues is somehow less specific than I can be in 60 seconds. And item 3, the agenda is upcoming. I can already see the writing on the wall that even the interim CEO pick will drive toward bias lane right next to managed corruption lane. And there is a price, one where the whole county will pay the toll, and especially for the increased security budget. And a 2025 regional plan initial concept, as if there's no pre-written agenda when you guys haven't even finished the previous 2021 regional plan drama. And it's all going to be monopoly games anyway, played by, as Bilaashka pointed out before, non-experts, most of who'd be better not collecting $200 and just going to jail instead, because this board is full of corruption. Andrea is just one. For example, there's no reason why the chair should get $150 a meeting, plus another $700 a month when they only drive 1 trip per meeting. Nor should vice chairs get $350 a month extra. And that's why I say SANDAG is nothing but a sideshow. And you guys are falling apart. That's why you're losing members one by one.
Correct. Your time expired. Our next public commenter, the original draw, will be followed by the final commenter, phone number 813. The original draw, please go ahead.
Sean, like you forgot. Oh, whoops, I forgot how to run a meeting. I do it all the time, but my goodness. Yeah. So looking forward to today. Yeah, your board agendas, it's interesting because last time you guys had at the board of directors, your whole agenda on bringing in, Anthony Ray to talk about some law enforcement or whatever for safety, but more so to shut the people up. And so it's interesting that should have been in front of the people. And the fact that you're going to have a closed session selection of the interim CEO just means that you're not going to be transparent with the people. You'll do it with some positions, do it in front of the people and review them in front of the people, and others you don't, and you have to do it behind closed doors. And so anything you guys want to do behind closed doors means something nefarious is going on, because everything you do is fraud, waste, and abuse. Oh, and one day the people will finally see, and this board is going to be obsolete because you're destroying everything. So good on you guys. You guys get a gold star today.
Our final public commenter, phone number 813, please go ahead. You are self-muted.
Okay, this, let's see, what do I want to say? You said elephant in the room. Something more like the Goodyear blimp, brother. This is huge. What else? What am I going to say? Yeah, you guys are falling apart like the house of cards you built, and the people are rising. Get used to it. Get more people, get more guards in there. Get more fake, ugly plants. Push the people back further. Have one row. Because guess what? That's not going to stop us. That's not going to detour us. And people are getting fed the fuck up. Oh, congratulations on your baby. Sean Elo Rivera.
That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you so much. Mayor Voss, may we use your motion to approve the consent agenda? Member Shu? Thank you. All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second. I don't see any additional requests to speak to this item. Tessa, please call the roll. Oh, we do. Yeah, we'll do it. That's apologies. We don't have the remote for the executive committee. So we'll do a voice vote for this one, if that is all right. Tessa, do you want to call it one by one?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Elo Rivera.
Yes.
The County of San Diego is absent. For East County, Councilmember Shu.
Aye.
North County Coastal, Vice Chair Huebner.
Yes.
North County Inland, Mayor Voss. South County, Councilmember Duncan.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you so much. We will now go to item number 4, review of bylaws, board policies, and governance. Our goal today is to provide committee members the opportunity to ask questions of staff and provide feedback so that we can come back to our next meeting to consider any recommendations we may want to make to the board. There's a lot to cover, and I know that it's important to the chairwoman that we take the time we need to talk through this and ask any questions of staff that we may have. With that in mind, I will hand it over to Amber Lynn so she can go over the proposed amendments.
Good morning, Executive Committee. My name is Amber Lynn Deaton. I'm SANDAG's Deputy General Counsel, and I'm here today to begin the agency's process for reviewing and proposing amendments to its bylaws and board policies. So as a first step, the Office of General Counsel solicits requests from staff regarding any potential changes, and these changes are really aimed at ensuring consistency with agency practices, streamlining workloads, and then ensuring that we are aligned to any changes in law. Then we bring those proposed changes here to the Executive Committee for discussion and then allow you the opportunity to discuss any additional changes that you may want to see. If there are additional amendments that you would like to see, we would then bring those back to you with additional analysis for further discussion and potentially a recommendation to the board for action should you choose to take that route. This year, we're proposing amendments to the bylaws and to 7 board policies. The Audit Committee has also proposed changes to Board Policy 39, which governs the structure of that committee. Each of these is attached to your report in red line format today. And so for each of these potential amendments, I'll discuss some of the more substantive amendments that are being proposed, and I'll refer to the online page number where those are reflected so you can follow along. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions. So beginning with the bylaws, which is on page 20 of the online version of the document, there's one proposed amendment to your bylaws, which is the addition of a provision to clarify how SANDAG will reimburse members for their automobile mileage when they're attending meetings and events. And then to add an option that has not been available to date, which would allow members to be reimbursed for the cost of a round-trip transit ticket to a meeting or event. This option would be available to members who do not already have passes that are provided to them in their capacity as a member of one of the operator boards. You might ask, wouldn't it just be easier to provide members with a transit pass? We do have some limitations there because the California Constitution limits the ability of elected officials to receive free transit passes when they are not a member of an operator board, but reimbursement for the trip to attend the meeting would be permissible should the board choose to adopt that change. Up next is Board Policy 2, which is the Policy Advisory Committee membership. That begins on page 29 of the online document.
Amberlyn,
Oh,
for that item, so in terms of reimbursement for seniors, I presume I get reimbursed for the senior rate on the transit pass, on the transit route.
Yes, it would be whatever the available rate is.
And I presume there's no provisions for active transportation, whether walking or biking?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Maybe we can get something else extra at the refreshment table then. Thank you.
All right, and moving on to Board Policy 2, that begins at page 29 and then continues on at page 31. We're proposing to update the names of the agencies that participate on the Public Safety Committee, and that's to align with some recent changes to the updated ARGIS JPA that the board adopted back in April, and then to align with current practice as well. Board Policy 4 are your rules of procedure, and that begins at page 34. Staff is proposing a few updates to align with our current practices that are related to virtual public meetings. And so this would be to clarify the posting of agendas and ordinances on SANDAG's website, and that virtual participants are not required to submit written requests to speak. There are some proposed amendments that also reflect, proposed amendments also reflect the addition of section 3.7 to this policy, and that begins at page 39. And that clarifies the rules of participation for our public meetings. You may be aware that SB 1100 went into effect earlier this year that made changes to the Brown Act, allowing agencies to conduct their meetings in an orderly manner and also allowing for the removal of individuals disrupting meetings. SB 1100 also allowed agencies to set their own rules of conduct to define what behavior would rise to the level of a disruption. And so those proposed amendments specify those rules of conduct and would allow the meeting chair to issue warnings, remove violators, and recess a meeting in the event of a disruption. And those rules as drafted would also apply to the board as well as the policy advisory committees. And then lastly, the amendments to board policy would clarify the compliance obligations of our members, and that begins at page 38 and then picks up again on page 44. As you're likely aware, our members are required to file Form 700 conflict of interest statements, participate in ethics training, and then also a newer requirement to participate in sexual harassment training. And so those amendments clarify those requirements and then specify that members would not be permitted to vote or to receive reimbursements for meeting stipends or travel reimbursements if they are out of compliance with those requirements. Board Policy 5 is the sponsorship of events policy that begins at page 49. The amendments here are looking to clarify when and how SANDAG may participate in sponsorship opportunities. Your existing policy allows SANDAG to sponsor events, but it's silent regarding the acceptance of sponsorships. So those proposed amendments would allow SANDAG to accept in-kind sponsorships only for events and activities, so no exchange of money, subject to certain criteria and in compliance with our existing conflict of interest requirements and procurement policies. Board Policy 7 is our EEO and DBE policy that begins on page 52. This is a fairly minor update to acknowledge that SANDAG will comply with the DBE requirements for FRA funds, just like it does for any other federal agency. Board Policy 8, Legal Matters, begins on page 56. Here we're proposing to make some minor clarifications to the claims administration process that align with the current statute. We're also proposing to eliminate references to the entity known as Source Point, since you took action a few months ago to dissolve that entity. And then finally, at page 59, the agency occasionally has to appear in small claims court. So the proposed addition would authorize the CEO or whoever the relevant designee may be to make that appearance on behalf of the agency in consultation with the Office of General Counsel. And that's because, as you may or may not be aware, legal counsel cannot appear on behalf of the agency in small claims court. Board Policy 26 for the Public Safety Committee, that begins on page 63. And then similar to the updates that I mentioned a moment ago, we are proposing to update the names of the agencies that participate on the Public Safety Committee, and then also proposing to eliminate the requirement that the board chair authorize any grant applications. This aligns with our other grant processes, and the board or the PAC overseeing that would still have the opportunity to decline grant funds at the time that a budget amendment is processed. Board Policy 28 is the asset ownership and disposition policy that begins on page 65. This looks like substantial changes, but it's mostly a reorganization to make clear the requirements for the disposition of personal property versus real estate. There have been some recent changes to the law, and SANDAG is now subject to the Surplus Land Act, so we've updated the policy to reflect that. And then we're also adding a provision that will comply with any specific grant requirements for the disposition of property that's purchased with those grant monies. And so the last policy is Board Policy 39, the Audit Advisory Committee policy that begins at page 70. As I mentioned, it's the Audit Committee that has proposed changes to its governance structure. The Audit Committee proposes to modify the procedure for the appointment of the committee leadership. The current policy states that the chair and the vice chair of the Audit Committee will be appointed by the chair of the board to a 2-year term, and that's consistent with the leadership process that's utilized for all of the other policy advisory committees. The proposed amendment would instead have the committee select its own chair and vice chair by majority vote, and it would change the term of that office from 2 years to 1 year. The Audit Committee has also asked that for board member term, a change to the board member terms. The current policy calls for the board members to serve a term of 2 years. The Audit Committee's proposed amendment would modify that maximum term to allow a board member to serve up to 6 consecutive years, so 3 2-year terms, and then serve again after a hiatus of a full 2-year term. And then for the public members, the current policy calls for the public members to serve a term of 2 years, but no more than 5 consecutive years. It also requires a public member to reapply at the end of their term so that they can be considered along with other applicants. And then the amendment that's being proposed by the Audit Committee would change that term from 2 years to 3 years, and would allow for reappointment after a 1-year hiatus. The proposed amendment would also allow any current public members or sitting members to request direct reappointment without consideration of other candidates, and then allow that term to be increased by up to an additional year in order to achieve staggering of terms. And then with regard to the selection process, the current policy requires public member candidates to be considered by a screening committee, and that consists of a board member selected by the chair of the board, a finance director of a member jurisdiction, and an independent financial expert, and then it is recommended to the board for approval. The proposed amendment would change the composition of the screening committee to include 1 board member on the audit committee, 1 public member on the audit committee, the independent performance auditor, and the SANDAG CFO. And then once scored by the selection committee, the applicants that score in the top 20% would then be selected by a random drawing and forwarded to the board for approval. And then finally, the Audit Committee proposed the addition of a new provision, which would allow for the appointment of a non-voting alternate public member who had either served as a former Public Audit Committee member or who was selected from the, or a non-selected finalist from the selection committee's recruitment process. I know that's a lot of information, but that concludes my summary of the proposed board updates, and then I'm happy to answer any questions and take any direction.
Thank you for that, Amberlynn. Do we have any public comment on this?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, we have 2 in-person public commenters and 4 virtual. Mary Davis, please come to the podium.
Hi, good morning. Mary Davis here. I just am asking you to please reconsider and omit clapping from your modification for Board Policy 4, Section 3.9.2. So Mara Elliott had written a letter saying about that booing was deemed illegal by the California courts as a case precedent, and that's under In Re K in 1970. And I do bring your attention and hope legal counsel will look into that. I will read part of it. Audience activities such as heckling, interrupting, harsh questioning, and booing, even though they may be impolite and discourteous, can nonetheless advance the goals of the First Amendment. For many citizens, such participation in public meetings, whether supportive or critical of the speaker, may constitute the only manner in which they can express their views to a large number of people. The Constitution does not require that the effective expression of ideas be restricted to rigid and predetermined patterns. A cogent remark, even though rudely timed or phrased, may contribute to the free interchange of ideas and the ascertainment of truth. Thank you.
Our next public commenter, Truth, please come to the podium. You will be followed by the first virtual, phone number 813.
I agree with the audit committee choosing its own chair for a one-year term, but I'm against any member serving for more than 5 years. And anyone who serves on a city's audit committee should be disqualified from being on SANDAG's audit committee. Now, ethics training, that's a laugh. Hassan admitted to being insubordinate and said he'd do it again. What ethics? Just another reason why every single reimbursement needs to be defunded. You guys shouldn't even have personal cars at this point. Go take that trolley with the slashers on it, or go walk the streets so you can see the people you're negatively affecting. And now finally, the off-topic rule is officially implemented. But who's the dictator of topic or decibel level? These are all the exact same rules being implemented at the county next week, word for word. There's no conspiracy. But the difference here is that board policy number 0043.9.6 says you guys can continue on making decisions without public input. That's criminal. And another joke is SANDAG having a viewpoint neutral basis on anything. No, notoriety is right, negative notoriety. And many of you create it for yourselves. So you need to get on board with good policies because this is all bad.
Your time expired. Our first virtual commenter, phone number 813, will be followed by Catherine Rhodes. Phone number 813, please go ahead. You are self-muted. Please go ahead.
Okay, let's see, reimbursements for trips to meetings. Can that include the few citizens who participate in these corrupt clown shows? A reward of such, since we're the only ones out of 3.4 million, would be great. Let's see, 28 grant provision land law, whatever. 2-year term. How about month-to-month policy and have the people vote monthly to keep or toss out the corrupt trash? Hunger Games style. Let's see, you may also want to update with the representatives having a minute to speak each. That's it.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Catherine Rhodes, will be followed by Paul Hinken. Catherine, please go ahead. You are self-muted.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and I was calling regarding board policy 004. Again, our Constitution literally gives us the right to put our grievances to you guys. And, you know, at the City Council with Shanilo Rivera president, so many, probably at least 3 times when I was talking on the topic, he interrupted me to disrupt my flow. So he's impeding, every single word about impeding what's going on happens when the chair decides that something is off topic to them. We're allowed to weave a story. If we have a minute, we could use the whole minute to weave a story and then put the topic right at the end to bring it all together. So many times I try to do that and I literally get my constitutional rights violated because the chair will say that's off topic. And I'm like, no, I'm getting to the point, but I have a full minute to get to the point, and it's not up to you guys to decide if something's off topic when somebody's talking.
Your time expired. Our next public speaker, Paul Henkin, will be followed by the final commenter on this item, the original draw. Paul, please go ahead. And you are there you go.
Thank you, Catherine. To follow up on my earlier comment, I think it is very disrespectful if several staff members sort of double team on a member of the board to get their point across. The board member has other things to do, like perhaps read the entire comment and make a reasoned decision on what he or she is voting about. And that's really why it's unethical. And I think there should be a policy against more than one staff person calling the board member on a particular item that's up for consideration. I think the board member should be able to make a reasoned decision by him or herself. Thank you.
Our final commenter, the original draw, please go ahead.
Oh my gosh, am I off topic? I'm not sure. I don't even know what the topic is. Who knows? Does anybody? Anyway, it's funny because you guys are servants to the people. We are your boss, and you sit here and act like you guys, are puppeteers. And it's funny because, you are violating your oath and everything that you're doing, but especially this. And as you redefine and demonize what free speech is, because then if you say it's like disorderly conduct, right, then it's like, oh my gosh, we got to arrest them for that. You know what? Take them out in the hallway and beat the crap out of them. Oh my gosh, slam their head into the ground and then let's just throw them in jail. It's good. Oh, but no, we really want to hear what you guys have to say. And so it's so funny because there's federal statutes. And as we know, Cardenas is already, on the way to being a felon. This is 18 USC 241 and 242. That's conspiracy against rights and deprivation of rights under the color of law, which is what you guys are doing. Those are federal offenses. They carry jail time. And you sit here and you do this. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and all you're doing is going against it. And don't forget, you're our servants.
Your time expired. That concludes the public commenters.
All right. We will now move to member discussion of the policies in front of us. As a reminder, we don't have access to the remotes right now, so anyone who'd like to make comments, just go ahead and wave your hand, and we will get to you. Do we have any questions or comments here?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I think you go ahead.
Okay.
Second Vice Chair.
I would like to look at policy 39. Having spoken to Chair Zito, he couldn't be here today. Otherwise, he would be here to make some of these comments. But he would like to discuss this with the chair because this came from the audit committee, and there are some recommendations that were more highly recommended than others. Also, he mentioned that the new independent auditor has some opinions on this, and I think that she should be consulted, and when she's officially hired on the 13th, perhaps she can speak to when this comes back to us. I know what's appropriate for today is that we ask staff to maybe analyze any of the things that we bring up as considerations for alterations to what's been proposed in the red lines. And one of the things that I would like to suggest is that the chair of the audit committee continues to be nominated by the chair of the board, but that the committee can vote for the vice chair. So if that could perhaps be analyzed. The other is in terms of on the selection committee, as you know, I was just on the public member selection committee, and we worked with the old rules, and apparently there could be considered, one of the recommendations in this is that the OIPA be on the selection committee, and in a way that could be considered a conflict of interest because they report to the audit committee. So they should probably not be on it, and nor should the CFO, because it would be the same situation. And I like that a board member who is on the committee would be the one that would be appointed to that. I was particularly impressed with the two individuals who were selected by the chair and myself, who came to do the interviews and review all of the applications for the public members. They were finance people from public agencies, one from the county, and the one that I selected was from San Elijo JPA. And they have a lot of experience and brought a fresh set of eyes to the whole process. And I think that that might be considered as well when we're looking at this. Another consideration that Chair Zito brought up was that the public members, right now, we just appointed them all at the same time. And it would be better if we could somehow stagger those, so we can find a way to perhaps stagger that. And then it looks like we might have already taken care of the alternate situation because we did appoint an alternate. And so that was, there's some recommendation in here about perhaps doing an alternate. I didn't know if that was for an additional alternate that would be a floating one, or that this was, I don't know the difference if there, but we might have already taken care of the alternate situation. So those are the comments that I have on Board Policy 39 for consideration of staff and analysis.
Thank you, Mayor Huebner. Do we have any additional questions or comments for Burkholder?
Yeah, thank you so much. I just have a question on Article 5, officers and their duties. Section 2, it says the board may delegate authority to the board chair for action consistent with board approved criteria on categories of items. That's pretty vague, and it was used as part of the reasoning for the chair to unilaterally make a decision to direct staff to enter into a contract. So I'm just wondering if we can look at that and maybe tighten it up a bit on what that actually means. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Member Burkholder, just so I make sure I understand, is the request for analysis of what a more explicit delineation of the roles, responsibilities, and powers of the chair?
I think that would be very helpful because the board did not vote to have the chair enter into the direct staff to do that. So that's the part that's left out of the whole equation here.
Got it. Understood. Understood. I think just, and this, I'm sure will come through the analysis. I imagine there will be a balancing act of not being able to account for every possible situation that the chair, we may need the chair or would want the chair to be able to utilize some authority. And so certainly wanting to make sure that there's clarity around what powers the chair has, but also from my perspective, not being so prescriptive as to kind of paralyze the ability of the chair to make it to make recommendations or decisions when the time is right.
And I don't disagree with you. I'm actually quite in parallel with that by expanding the power of the chair. If that's the way it's going to be. I just think it needs to be written and explicit of what we're doing.
Understood. All right. And we'll go Member Shu and then Member Duncan.
I have a quick question for Evelyn. For the audit committee, one of the changes was the selection of, I think, the public member, something to do with top 20% of candidates interview would be randomly selected. Sorry, thanks. Can you explain how that works? Maybe if there's, let's say if there's only 3 candidates or if there's more than 5, how does that work?
So as the audit committee has proposed it, they would, the selection, or excuse me, the audit committee would come up with a set of criteria for evaluation that the selection committee would then apply to all of the candidates. And then based on that scoring, whoever scores within the top 20% would be put in a hat. And then depending on how many members they are forwarding to the board for consideration would be selected. And then with the final approval happening at the board.
Right. So this is the first time I've come across that kind of a process. So if you have only 4 candidates or 3 candidates, would that random selection be applicable?
I think it would depend on the number of candidates that would apply for the position.
Right. So it seems like that would only work if you have more than, if you have more than 5 candidates, you may come across something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Shu. Member Duncan.
Just for my edification, so are we voting on an action item on this afterwards, or is this just advisory to the staff of our comments?
Correct. What we're asking is for analysis to come back. I believe that the rules dictate that we need to hear it twice at executive committee before before changes are made. This would kind of be the first hearing.
Got it. Thank you. And so my last question would be, is so if a board member requests staff to review, an alternate from what's proposed in the red lines, will you still review what's in the red lines though for us, correct? Right? Because for instance, if looking at 2.4, the change of having the audit committee select their own chair and vice chair, that's something that I support. I like that additional layer of independence.
we can bring that back at your next meeting with sort of alternative analyses, if that's the direction.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Member Duncan. I don't see any additional questions or comments on this. I will raise one issue, Board Policy 4, Section 3.9. I recognize that we are taking steps to ensure a certain level of decorum at our meetings. I'm hopeful that will allow for a more constructive exchange of ideas going forward. It's not about controlling behavior. It's about ensuring that we can have a functional meeting that ensures that the business that has to get done gets done. I did want to see if there might be interest in adding language to this section so that it would apply to our public events and activities as well. My understanding is that there have been 2 recent examples of staff receiving threats from the public, and we want to be sure that we as a board are doing everything that we can to ensure the safety for and respect to our staff members. So if I could ask for some analysis of potential changes there that ensure that our staff can be afforded the respect and safety that they deserve when they're doing their jobs.
Certainly.
Thank you. All right. So it looks like Amberlynn knows the work that's ahead of her, and she's got some clear direction in terms of additional analysis to provide. We will now move to item number 5, which is our legislative status report, and we will turn to Hannah.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Second Vice Chair, and members of the Executive Committee. My name is Hannah Stern, and I'll provide you with the federal report today. So after 3 weeks, the House of Representatives has a new speaker. There were 4 candidates that came before him, more senior members of leadership that were not able to secure the necessary votes. The new speaker is Representative Mike Johnson from Louisiana, who is a relatively unknown 4th-term backbencher. So it was a unanimous vote on party lines, which was markedly different from the previous votes. So now that there's a new speaker in place, there has been some progress on funding the government. As you recall, the federal government funding runs out on November 17th. So the Senate has been making swift progress on getting through the appropriations bills. Earlier this week, they passed the Transportation, Housing, Urban Development Bill with strong bipartisan support, and the House will be considering their version of that bill next week. There was also a request from the President to supply a supplemental appropriations bill to address the wars in Israel, Ukraine, and other domestic priorities, and Hector will speak to that a little bit later. The Department of Transportation has rolled out some new guidance supporting transit-oriented development. So they have clarified that their loan programs, the TIFIA program and the RIF program, make eligible housing projects, specifically office building to housing conversions. This is going to be a new focus from the White House, and they're anticipating rolling out more guidance from the Department of Energy and the Department of Housing and Urban Development to also support these office building to residence conversions. Jose Alvarez is out today, so I'll just briefly touch on the state report. The members have gone back to their districts for the remainder of the year. They'll be back for the second half of the 2023-24 legislative session on January 3rd. The state has also announced the new legislative calendar for 2024, so all bills need to be introduced by February 16th next year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Hector Venegas for the border report.
Buenos dias, good morning. My name is Hector Vanegas, and I will provide a little bit of our border perspective. Last month, Mexico held the last of 5 national events programmed to develop their new strategy for metropolis. Why I'm mentioning this? Because the purpose of the event was precisely to release the final document, and our agency was invited to stress the importance of supranational metropolis that exist all over the world. The new strategy recognized that Mexico has 92 metropolis divided in 48 metropolitan zones, 22 one single municipality metropolis, and other 22 minor metropolis. 48% of the metropolitan zones, the 48 metropolitan zones represent almost 70% of the Mexican population and over 80% of the GDP. But maybe more important than the data, or equally important, is the fact that this new strategy is offering guidelines and planning and development of the Mexican metropolis, which is a subject of interest of our planning efforts in San Diego. Our Deputy CEO, Colleen Clemenson, had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Daniel Fajardo, who is Mexico's Undersecretary for Urban and Housing Development. This can be key, considering housing is a sensitive topic for our region and that we share a very big community of San Diegans, over 100,000 that live in Mexico and return to San Diego every day. Another relevant event in the region, was the sub-regional meeting of the United States and Mexico Binational Bridges and Border Crossings Group that was held also on October 26 in Tijuana. Remember that San Isidro is the busiest international land border crossing in the world, and rough numbers from our Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, estimates that between 75% to 90% of those border crossers are U.S. citizens returning to the United States every day. Also, our Otay Mesa port of entry, the existing port of entry, handles over 3/4 of California's export to Mexico, who is the largest export market for California, actually 70% largest than its second market. Well, this meeting was a very relevant for our region and an opportunity for the Mexican authorities to showcase the progress in building their future Otay 2 port of entry. The Mexican government report that they will conclude construction as planned by the end of this year or early next year. And finally, as Hannah already mentioned, our federal government continues to seek additional funding for a permanent solution for the needed sanitation of the Tijuana River. President Biden submitted a $56 billion emergency supplemental funding request, where $310 million were included, but still required to be approved by both chambers. And with this, I conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Hector, for the presentation. Do we have public comment on item 5?
Thank you. I have 1 in-person public commenter and 5 virtual. Truth, please come to the podium.
Thank you for this report on a small piece of the craziness that's been passed in this state. SB 825 for broadband that, of course, SANDAG supports. The SANDAG conference room poster promotes an Internet of Things with AI. So now they'll be able to get state debt dollars from the CPUC to do it. AB 414, the so-called Digital Equity Bill of Rights, the same agenda, but bastardizing the phrase Bill of Rights. We have a right to not be exposed to toxic infrastructure that emits harmful radiation. AB 557 allows local agencies to use teleconferencing without complying with requirements during a fraudulent state of emergency, the excuse to throw out all the rules. The congressional update, though, that was a good laugh. You guys even capitalized the word any for emphasis, as if any of these people do anything good for the American people. It's like a sports game. What was really achieved? A ball was kicked back and forth. But just like pro wrestling, when they're out of the spotlight, they pat each other on the back and say, "We got them." Here's my summary. Israel and Ukraine get all our money, and these people rotate out as soon as they get caught in corruption. Just like SANDAG, you all have a lot in common. Congrats.
Our next public commenter, phone number 813. Please go ahead. You will be followed by Paul Henkin.
Okay, so I'm confused. The Mexican metropolis, how does this in any way benefit San Diego County and its residents? You should be reporting this in Baja California, not San Diego, California, brother. And yeah, free Palestine, free Palestine, ethnic cleansing, colonization, when you people do not honor the indigenous people. All words. You can take your words and do something with them. Free Palestine.
Our next public commenter, Paul Hinken, will be followed by Catherine Rhodes. Paul, please go ahead. You are self-muted.
Okay, let's see. I was listening. I was struck by the number of comments that do not pertain to SANDAG's mission, which is a transportation agency. I mean, like, what does the Ukraine war have to do with SANDAG's mission? I mean, you know, and I'm not sure what the Mexican metropolis has to do with SANDAG's mission of transportation planning either. It's really kind of a waste of public time and resources that, you know, SANDAG goes out and speculates on all these things. I mean, we should be focusing on the county and what we can do or what you can do for us, and not just, I mean, all these other things are interesting, but
Your time expired. Our next public commenter, Catherine Rhodes, will be followed by Blair Beekman. Catherine, please go ahead.
Good morning. Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes. And for this item, I was wondering if you guys could actually, in the federal and the state level, if you could actually look at getting the issues around the border transferred from different federal government agencies like the EPA over, or the Border Patrol, over to SANDAG, and specifically by following the process that you have for the Otay Mesa East. I forgot what it was, agreements. And so you could do the same thing, because we're getting another, I guess, $3 million to the EPA to fix the border sewage issue. But when will these projects actually start? You got 300 million, I forgot how many years ago. How much money has been spent already? Who knows? You don't know. I don't know, because you don't have any local control. So what I would like you to do is try to take local control of the Tijuana wastewater issue, and also Friendship Park. If you could get control of that, that would.
Your time expired. Our next public commenter, Blair Beekman, will be followed by the final commenter, Original Draw. Blair, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Really nice public comment, the previous public comment. I know Vivian Moreno of San Diego City Council. She's in that district. She's really working on that same issue. How can we bring in future funding for the Tijuana sewer project area? They're going to need about $300,000 a year over the next 5 years, which actually may not be that difficult if we organize ourselves well. I wanted to really thank you incredibly. The work that you do on border issues, I think is helping a lot at this time as a war is progressing, sadly, in the Middle East. We have good border relationships that I think can help mitigate any sort of violence or weirdness that will happen at the border at this time. It's our good relationships and dialogue that's helping this process. And you know, it's ideas of peace. So I think you guys can do something amazing here. Thanks for your efforts and this item.
Our final commenter, the Original Draw, please go ahead.
Thank God there is not an invasion at the border right now, right? Could you imagine if there was and people were just like crossing and there would be like terrorist crossing, and we're not doing anything about that to stop it. And what we're doing is sending money to other countries to protect their borders. I mean, imagine, you know, if there was actually a problem here, that would be so weird, wouldn't it? It would be so weird if somebody like, you know, from a terrorist organization was crossing. But that's not happening. That's why we're doing business with Mexico, right? Because everything is so good. There's no sewage being spilled by them. There's no, you know, murders happening at the border on TJ from the cartels killing the people that aren't paying their dues. They have to pay a lot of money to cross that border and get rid of their passport, because we can't have that. I mean, this is all fictitious. I'm just saying, like, this is a scenario that could, want people to stop doing business with somebody, but that's not the point. It's the economic, engagement and benefits that you get. So I'm so proud of you guys. You're so good at,
Your time expired. That concludes the public comments.
Thank you, Tessa. Do we have any member questions or comments on this item, this report? Go ahead, member.
I'll make it real quick. And this is for Hannah, and maybe you could pass it on to Jose. The Transportation Committee wanted to emphasize the need to increase funding for specialized transportation. That comes from a variety of sources. So if you can alert any of us as to what we can do to advocate to increase those sources, there are percentages of other funds, but perhaps there's some state of legislation that's that would affect to increase that amount. So just to tag that for us again. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
All right. I will just say thank you again, Hannah, Hector, for all of your work. Obviously, a lot goes into advocating for our region. This is not an easy environment to go get stuff done, given what's going on in DC right now. So thank you for all of your work. We do not need an action for this item. We do have 2 remaining non-agenda public comments before we conclude our meeting. Tessa?
Thank you. The 2 remaining non-agenda public comments, the original draw and Blair Beekman. I see you both have your hands raised. The original draw, please go ahead.
So we got fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, grand theft, and tax fraud. Oh my gosh, it's so great. This is so fun that Cardenas is engaged in that because all of you guys are. And it's so funny because you guys support each other. It's really good. It just shows. I mean, because we got, Nora and Todd going to South Korea, for Tijuana and San Diego mega region, continued collaboration. So smart to go to globalists, right? Like, we don't need to hear what the public has to say because tell them to just shut up and either get beat up or put in jail because we can't have anything that they have to say that we were not taking their input. We need it from the globalists. And then that's also why Gavin Newsom is in China, right? And that's how we're getting all our, climate action plans and stuff like that. Because as long as we're in collaboration with these people, things are going to get better. Because as you can see in China, it's so great, right? Oh my gosh. And they're the most they produce the most e-vehicles, electric vehicles and bikes, right? And they're just sitting in a lithium battery bomb minefield, basically. So it's good. I'm so glad we're engaging with these people. It means everything is going to go to shit.
Your time expired. Our final public commenter, Blair Beekman, please go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman. In the craziness of life, we're trying to maintain calm and good practices. Good luck in those efforts. As I said before, I think we're doing something pretty remarkable at the border at this time through simple dialogue, communication. Thank you. I think it's pretty remarkable. For myself, I hope we can work on the ideas of dialogue and communication. I wrote yourselves a letter about how to deal with more security at public meetings for SANDAG. I don't know if that's really the best answer, but I know it's a worry for yourselves. But I think if we practice reimagine ideas, counseling services, have some sort of counseling staff of security, those are the ways to address security issues and for all of us to feel more secure in the process. I hope you got my letter and can read it. It's along the ideas of how we can be working. I'm not the best at this stuff, but hopefully you can think in those terms how we can talk about this issue in the future. Thank you.
And that concludes the continued non-agenda public comments.
All right, thank you. With that, we are now concluded with our executive committee meeting. We will have our next executive committee meeting on Friday, December 8th at 9 a.m. Thank you. We're adjourned.